elite Stryfe and Raven combination has been a fan favorite in the Nerf community for quite some time. You take the modability and strength of the Nerf N-Strike Stryfe, and then you merge it with the back end of an N-Strike Raven, and you gain yourself a comfy buttstock, an extra magazine well, and a pretty overall good length blaster that's very comfortable and easy to use. But Ravens are kind of expensive, and honestly, since stock they're both semi-auto flywheel blasters that perform nearly identically, it always seemed kind of a waste to me. But what if there was another blaster that you could use to integrate into the back end of a Stryfe and still get the same overall look and function with the thumbhole stock and all that stuff, but with the added benefit of a couple extra features and not absolutely destroying your bank account, because these blasters are still pretty common to find? And well, obviously that would be the Crossbolt. But the Nerf N-Strike Elite Crossbolt is a stringer, it's not a flywheeler, so it takes a little bit more effort, but it can be done. And again, if you're saving a whole bunch of money, I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? Well, that's exactly what Mr. Nathan did, but Mr. Nathan is kind of cheating because he does a whole bunch of crazy custom work. I mean, well, if you look at this thing, you can kind of not even tell where the integration begins and ends. In fact, this entire silver bar and everything like that is all completely hand forged by him out of Bondo and epoxy putty, so that doesn't seem entirely fair. Not everybody's going to be able to do that, but it's still a really cool blaster, and it's a good idea for a lot of people, and a lot of people are exactly trying to do just that. But, yeah, spoiler alert, he sent that to me in one of his packages, and, well, I loved it, and he said it wasn't his best work ever, but it was one of the coolest things I had ever seen, and it absolutely sung to me. I needed to modify this blaster, and I figured since he was nice enough to give me such a completely awesome custom piece of work, well, I should go out of my way to try to make it the best thing I've ever modded, and that's where we're at right here with what I have dubbed The Rage of Dust. It's called The Rage of Dust because that's a song title, and on top of that, it likes to shred darts. This thing has a lot of custom pieces of it, but it's not just a Stryfe and a Crossbolt combination, because this thing's full auto. And it scares the crap out of me every single time I fire it, and that's hitting foam and bouncing back. I mean, that's not hitting like a straight up wall or anything. It's losing a lot of its velocity. Where do I even begin?
It hurt. Luckily, the welts faded fast.
Now, obviously, this blaster has got a lot of custom parts inside of it, so let's try to go over them as quickly as possible. Starting with the Angled Foregrip right here, it's kind of a Nerf airsoft accessory. It didn't fit Nerf rails all that well, but I just glued it on there because I never wanted to remove it anyway, and it brings the entire blaster together and is absolutely perfect in my opinion. But the main driving force of flinging your darts really fur is the red non-canted Artifact Flywheel Cage running the Artifact Serrated Flywheels, and the jury's kind of on the fence if the serrated kind or the smooth kind are better. I couldn't get the smooth kind, so I just went with the serrated kind. It still hits really hard, so I don't really care all that much. But driving those flywheels is two 180 Make Test Battle Hellcat Motors, which are extremely powerful and very torquey, so they require a lot of energy, and that's being delivered behind this Jase 3D printed extended Stryfe battery door with a 3S 1000 mAh Turnigy Graphene LiPo battery. And last but not least, we've got, of course, the extended worker Stryfe magazine release, which works very well in my opinion, and then obviously the Stryfe Full-Auto Kit, all of which were purchased off TacticalFoam.com. Not sponsored or anything, I'm just happy that there's a guy like an hour away from me that sells all these beautiful parts and I don't have to try to source them from China. But that's not everything, because we've got this beautiful extended 180 motor cover from BlackSteelProps. Now, I don't think he sells these anymore, Hawkeye 007, but it's a very beautiful part that I used on this blaster and kind of copied the whole Paradigm Shift kind of copied his Ethereal Fortress open, so you can see everything in their plexiglass window right there. And then these flared magazine well pieces right here, well, those are also from BlackSteelProps. Now, I was originally going to use the BlackSteelProps canted flywheel cage, but since my Dremel died, I couldn't cut the brass, and I had to resort to using this and the flywheel cage, which I was going to use inside the Paradigm Shift, and move that flywheel cage to another thing, but whatever, it's inside this thing now. Is that everything? Not even close. So we've also got the beautiful voltmeter that Rob from SBNC found. Rest in peace, buddy. Hopefully you come back soon. It's a very, very, very nice voltmeter. It's not all that big. It looks cool, gives you clean readings. You can have percentage-based if you want some more tactical sci-fi feel, or you can have just a voltage readout. Battery's a little dead at this point. It's at, what, 11.9 volts, fully charged. It's at, like, I think 12.6 or 7. So it's a little dead, but still performs admirably. Is that everything, though? No, because if I were to lift up this battery door right here, which gives you access to the buttons and everything on this, and then of course disconnecting for the pusher mechanism and whatnot, there's a little switch right there, a little hard to see. But when I turn that on, whoo, we've got some LED action, because why the heck not? So we've got LEDs in here, LED on the other side, although these kind of came not in the perfect position, so doesn't light up all that well in the bright light. LEDs in here. There's LEDs in this grill right here as well. One's on that side. I don't even think that's facing the right direction anymore. Can always fix it. We've got LEDs back here to light all this stuff up, and there's even an LED shining up here, which looks really good in the dark. And why not? All that crazy stuff brings this entire blaster together, and I'm quite happy with it, although it was a lot of work. Getting all these pieces to fit in a shell that was never really meant for it. I mean, if you look at this side of the shell, it's quite obviously the Crossbolt mostly, but if you look over here, it's mostly a Stryfe, so obviously it was a huge challenge getting that full-auto kit to fit in there. It works, but man, going over the paint job, it's pretty basic. A lot of Rustoleum paints, black gloss, a silver kind of speckled finish. A lot of Tamiya weathering powders all over this thing to try to break up the monotony of the flat color. So there's like rust and burn marks and soot all over this. You can see at the barrel here. And then I went over all of that with a Rustoleum 2X gloss clear coat. I'm not a huge fan of the gloss, but for what the feel of this blaster was going to be, I went with the gloss anyway. I was gonna try to tape it off and make some parts matte, some parts gloss, but that seemed way too difficult. So I didn't go with that. But of course, all of this stuff together doesn't mean anything if it doesn't have some sort of gimmick, so there is in fact a gimmick that I don't think Mr. Nathan really meant to happen, but it was something I kind of figured out with my Crossbolt when I was toying around with it trying to mod it, and well, that's in this rear magazine well right here. Well, there's a magazine right there, and right now it's kind of covered up with some unfortunate wires because I've been tweaking everything. But the main gimmick here is you just take a dart, and let's say you're in the middle of a fight. Well, if you need to, you can just pop a dart in here. Done. Really, really easy. So you could be topping up darts in this thing just like a quick 16 or a speed load 6. And then, of course, when you need to reload, you pull that out, you pull this out, put that in there, put that in here, empty mag back in here that you can be filling up on the fly, and then of course you've got your full magazine right here. Of course this will work with drums and whatnot, everything. I'm just using the 12s because it's way easier to move around like this. I mean, the 18s are pretty long in my opinion. I'm never a huge fan of them, but this entire blaster profile is incredibly thin, very easy to have kind of swung to your side. It works a lot better with a single point sling than it does with a 2-point sling, although it does have the 2 parts right here that you could sling from. But it's a relatively compact, easy to use blaster. The rate of fire, gosh, that's scary. The actual full auto kit is very easy to control. The full rewiring I did inside this thing, I used 2 of the Omron switches again, so they're very clicky, very tactile, and the best part is, of course, when you're firing this thing, let's say I want to fire 1 dart, but then if you want to go full auto, and these batteries are a little weak because I've already ran a war and I still haven't refilled them. The batteries actually driving the pusher mechanism are not the LiPo, it's actually 2 trust fires that are housed inside here, which you can remove if you open this up, remove the magazine, and just pull the thing out. It's just held in there with magnets. I did that kind of as a cop-out because it would be way easier in the circuitry, but I also didn't want the 3S LiPo to completely destroy the 130 motor that's using the pusher mechanism inside. I didn't want to feel like trying to swap that or repair it or anything like that because I was really worried if it ever burnt out and I had any problems with it. So the, like 7 volts or whatever from the 2 truss fires is perfectly enough. The fire rate is perfect. There's no runaway. It works absolutely amazing. Very, very easy. Then, of course, full auto. And you can see the gearing actually run inside here. And it gives it a little minute kick the way the pusher snaps back with the spring. So it feels really good to fire, even without any darts coming out of it. It's just like, it's so cool. I love this thing. Performance-wise, running it through the chronograph when I had the battery fully charged and I shot it at Chalo's house, it was hitting 123, 126, which is pretty admirable, a little bit less than what I thought it would do. But when I ran it through the chronograph here with the battery kind of half discharged, I was hitting 120s, and then when I did full auto, there were a couple of darts that did slip. I don't know if that could be improved with a different battery. I mean, this is one of the best batteries I could possibly get for the, 3S thing to run the Hellcats, so I don't really know. Or the flywheels or something like that. It should be hitting like 135, 140, but the actual velocity is still very high and very usable. Accuracy is okay. It's not nearly as good as the BSP cage, but the main issue with that is that the BSP cage has brass in it. It's canted. It's meant to kind of twirly the darts and make them go straight as twirls and go straight. It gives a spin on the dart, basic aerodynamics. But when I kind of chronographed the paradigm shift, it was only hitting like 95, 101. This is hitting substantially harder, so I don't know if that's the BSP cage or just something I screwed up. It's probably something I screwed up, so when I get around to it, I will actually put the other BSP cage in there and see what actually happens. So again, a huge thanks to Tacticool Foam, Hawkeye 007 / BlackSteelProps, Chalo, John, my good friends that helped me get this thing up and running, with John running out and picking up this extended battery door right before a field test at a war, Chalo for letting me use his tools and giving me a little insight on how to get this thing done, because he's a little bit better at soldering and stuff than I am. I think it turned out pretty good, but let me know what you think down in the comment boxes below. If there's any simple mods you think that can bring this thing up even farther, I'd love to hear them, of course, because I want this to be one of my better blasters and kind of fits the whole crazy Gundam motif that I'm going to be trying to design. And then, of course, if you dislike the blaster, you can obviously hit the dislike button, but I want to hear why. I worked really hard on this thing. I would love it if you shared the video and, talked about it with some other people. And I mean, for people who aren't into Nerf, well, this is the reason why I Nerf. It's because you can't get crazy 100% custom stuff like this in virtually any hobby and then go out there and face other people with it. I mean, there's no other blaster that's like this thing. Not only does it use two blasters integrated in such a unique way, there's custom furnishings all over this thing. Nobody's gonna have another one just like this. So this one is mine, and this is the Rage of Dust. I'm Walcom S7. Thank you for watching this video, and of course, I hope to see you in an entirely different one.